Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Welcome everyone to our meeting tonight where we're going to be talking about fats. In fact, I call this meeting Fantastic Fats. Why do I call it Fantastic Fats? Because unfortunately for about the last 50 years, fats have been demonised. Am I right? We're told that fats are bad. Fats are going to give you heart disease. They're going to cause your cholesterol levels to go up. They're going to make you die from a heart attack. And the number one killer in Australia today is heart disease. Actually, heart disease and cancer are neck to neck, really. They're both almost the number one killer. And so a lot of people have stopped fats because of this. Would you agree with me? Because no one wants to die. Yeah? So what I think we should be making our decisions on is not fear, but another little four-letter word that starts with F, and that is fact. And that's what I want to give you tonight. I want to give you some facts on fats so that you can make an intelligent decision. And before I begin, I want to just lay down a foundation. And I want to make it clear to you that there is no proof that cholesterol and saturated fat cause heart disease. Is that shocking? It's absolutely shocking, isn't it? In fact, I've got 5 books in my health retreat. These are the names. The Great Cholesterol Deception by Dr. Petrie Bilingual. The Great Cholesterol Con by Dr. Malcolm Kendrick. He's a cardiovascular surgeon. There's another book that's an e-book, and that's The Great Cholesterol Lie by Dr. Dwight Lundell, another cardiovascular surgeon who has performed 10,000 bypasses. And what's the name of his book? The Great Cholesterol Lie. There's another book called The Great Cholesterol Hoax, and there's another book called The Great Cholesterol Myth. We're running out of words, aren't we? And all of those books show that there is no proof that cholesterol and saturated fat cause heart disease. In fact, the scientist that first made this theory famous was 1953. Now that's over 60 years ago. And he put the hypothesis together that he believed cholesterol and saturated fat cause heart disease. So he studied 17 countries to find proof of his theory. You know, that's not science. That you come up with a theory and you look for proof. Is that science? No, science is based on fact. Now, of the 17 countries he looked at, he had to keep eliminating a whole lot of countries because they didn't prove his theory. One country who does not support his theory is enough to say that his theory is wrong. Isn't that true science? He had to eliminate the Maasai. What do Maasai live on? Blood, meat and milk. 0 heart disease. Now, if saturated fat and cholesterol cause heart disease, wouldn't they be having more heart attacks than any other culture on the planet? He had to also eliminate the French and the Norwegians and the Swiss because in those northern countries they ate a lot of dairy products and there's very little heart disease. They put together the Framingham Heart Study. The Framingham Heart Study is a little town of Framingham in America. It's been going for about 30 years, 30,000 people, some die, a few more come on. It's not funded by the pharmaceutical company or the dairy industry or the wheat industry or the grain industry. So it's an objective study. It was set up to prove that cholesterol and saturated fat cause heart disease, but it's 30 years later and it still hasn't proved that. But you know what it has proved? That people with high cholesterol levels don't get Alzheimer's. Now I'm just going to give you a moment's silence to digest that. Do you know why people with high cholesterol don't get Alzheimer's? Is because the fattiest organ in the body is the brain. And the brain loves fat. Did you hear that? In fact, the membrane around every cell in the body is 50% fat, but the membrane around the brain cell is 70% fat. Not only is it a very fatty organ, but it loves fat for fuel. Did you know that the food that has the highest cholesterol levels, the highest fat of any food on the planet, breast milk in the first month of life? Does that mean they're going to ban breast milk? Do you know why babies need such a fatty milk? It's because the brain can't develop properly unless it's getting fat. In Australia, there are 1,700 cases of Alzheimer's being diagnosed every week. That's a little scary, isn't it? Did you know that the human body will deteriorate? I'm sure that's nothing new to you. But the human brain need never deteriorate. Do you know what that means? No one should be getting Alzheimer's. So this fat myth, this fat phobia that's been taking over the planet for the last 50 years, has that got a lot to do with the Alzheimer's? Has it got a lot to do with the 50% Australians who have, are, or sometime will suffer from mental illness? Now these figures are alarming, aren't they? What I want to show you tonight, I'm going to give you the facts. Actually, yes. I'm going to give you the facts on fat. And I'm going to begin by showing you one of the most dangerous fats, because there are fats that heal and there are fats that kill. And because there are killer fats, sadly, all fats have been put into the one basket. And I'm going to begin with something that might surprise you, and that is carbohydrates. But I thought that I was speaking about fats. I am. Now carbohydrates, what are carbohydrates? So let's make a list. Cereal, pasta, rice, yeah, and potatoes, yeah, bread, yeah. Good students here. Sugar, bread. The Europeans have introduced us also to pizza, and what are Aussies love? Pies, yeah. There's even a song about it, is that right? Meat pies, kangaroos and folding cars. And cakes, biscuits, donuts. Would you agree with me that Aussies are high carbohydrate consumers? Never in the history of mankind have human beings eaten so many carbohydrates. And you can see why. It's just there. It's fast. I went with my daughter-in-law today and my two little grandchildren for a little walk. She needed to buy something, wondered if anything would be open. Anzac Day. What was open? All the cafes, all the food shops. Just fast food. It's just there. All of these foods break down in the gastrointestinal tract to a tiny little substance called glucose. And glucose goes straight to the liver, and then the liver first of all sends it to the cell. And then it causes it to be stored in the cell as glycogen. They're quick release glucose stores. And then, because there's still a lot of glucose left over on this high carbohydrate diet, the liver causes it to be stored as fat. Can you see why when I'm talking about fat, I had to start with carbohydrates? And when you go to the supermarket and it says fat-free yogurt, by the way, what's it going to taste like? Not much good. So what do they put in it to make it taste any good? Sugar. They've now got a far more dangerous form of fat. You see, fat doesn't make you fat. Got that? What makes you fat? Is this carbohydrate. And most most of these carbohydrates are made out of one grain. Cereal, pasta, bread, pizza, pie, cakes, one grain. And that is wheat. And there's a book you can buy by Dr. William Davis. It's called Wheat Belly. You know why he calls it wheat belly? Because this hybridized wheat converts to glucose very, very quickly. And so now the body says, whoa, we've got too much, quick, dump it. Dump it. And as he shows, the first place this visceral fat is dumped is on the internal organs and on the covering of the internal organs, sometimes called belly. Is that right? So it's the visceral fat being dumped on the internal organs that pushes the belly out, and as well as that, it's being dumped on the belly, and so there we have it. In fact, in just about every page of his book is the term wheat belly. And how many Aussies, for so many years, when they want to lose weight, what do they stop? What do they stop eating? Fat. And do they lose weight? No. And they're always hungry. So they eat hardly anything for 3 days, and then they get so hungry they just run out and just eat. You see, it's fat that gives the feeling of satiation, which is satisfaction. And the best weight loss diet is a diet where you're not hungry. And you know what gives you that feeling? Fat. And when you realize that fat doesn't make you fat, so one of the most dangerous fats on the planet is this fat that's dumped because of the high carbohydrate diet, particularly the carbohydrates that are made from wheat that was hybridized in the 50s, went worldwide in the 70s. So by the 1990s, every cereal, pasta, bread, pizza, pie, cake, what's it made of? The hybridized wheat. One lady said, oh no, Barbara, God made wheat good. I said, He did. But it's not the wheat we got today. I just got an email from a lady that said, you know, I come from Greece, and every time we go back to Greece, we can eat the bread, we can eat the pasta. We come back to Australia, we eat it, we get bloating, discomfort. I said, that's right. I'd like to suggest in those little villages, they've still got the traditional grain. And when I was a little girl and I went out west, you know how tall the wheat grew? You go out west today, you know how tall it grows? Way down there, it's been hybridized to produce a high yield of grain. And so that the stalk didn't break, they had to crossbreed it so that it would only grow that high with a thick stem to hold that heavy yield of wheat. Why did they do it? To help with the starvation crisis in Africa, in India, in Mexico, and it did. And no one objects to that. But what was never addressed was the effect of the hybridization of that grain on the human body. It produced a starch that gets the blood sugar level up far higher, far quicker, even than sugar. And then quickly the brain says, quick, release insulin to get that down. That's why wheat, the amount of wheat people are eating today, huge contributing factor to diabetes. So why isn't this known? Why aren't diabetics told not to eat wheat? Well, what does Australia grow a lot of? Wheat. Can you see what's behind the scenes here? We've got a book in our library at home called Cereal Killer, and this is how the cereal is spelt. And Cereal Killer, it's an American book. He shows that, I think it's 85% of American children have cereal for breakfast. By the age of 3, 1 in 3 are overweight or obese. Can you see why now? Because what does it dump as? Fat. So why isn't something done about it? Why are there so many ads that are brainwashing the children to buy cereal? Well, he goes a little bit further. He starts to investigate and he finds that the cereal industries and the grain industries go to court to defend their right to brainwash American children. That's a bit scary, isn't it? So as we talk about fat tonight, I needed to basically make that very clear to you. What I have just presented to you is straight science. There it is. This high carbohydrate diet is storing as one of the most dangerous forms of fat. Now, before I begin to show you the basic structure of many fats, I want to give you the cholesterol story because I think that's very important, because most Australians stop fat because they think that it's going to get their cholesterol level up and they think that it's going to cause heart disease, yeah? So let me show you what cholesterol is. Remember, this is what I'm dealing with, fats. So the big C, cholesterol. The liver makes cholesterol and it makes cholesterol according to the body needs. And there are two main types of cholesterol. One is HDL, high density lipoprotein, we know it well. And it's called the good guy because it's the carrier. It carries away excess cholesterol back to the liver if we don't need it. And then there's LDL, low density lipoprotein, called the bad guy, is that right? But the body doesn't make bad things. What's LDL's role in the body? LDL's role is that of a repairer and a rebuilder. That's what it is, that's what it does. It repairs and it rebuilds. Now it does something else too. It delivers cholesterol to the brain because the brain loves cholesterol. People with high cholesterol levels don't get Alzheimer's. Did you write that one down? Do you think you'll remember that one? Knowing that will help you to prevent memory loss too. Okay, so we've just defined what these two cholesterols do. Let's have a look at the blood. Here's the blood vessel, and because of its low density, LDL is always on the edge. Because of its high density, HDL is in the middle. Now let's say the person's smoking cigarettes, 4,000 chemicals in one cigarette. It can poke holes in the arterial wall. Let's say a person's living in a mouldy house. I don't know whether you got to Google that show called Mouldy on YouTube. Whoa, scary thing to watch. Mould, if it gets into your blood, can poke holes. No wonder the Bible says if your house has got mould, destroy it. It's a little bit strong. Please, if you find mould in your house, don't put bleach on it. Put white vinegar on it. And then get the builder to find out why it's there, because it couldn't be there. Okay, back to what's causing damage to the arterial walls. Mercury. Mercury's a neurotoxin. I didn't mention this last night, but one of the reasons why we should not be having flu shots is because flu shots have mercury in them. You ask any nurse, every time the flu shots go around, people with Alzheimer's get worse. People that didn't have Alzheimer's before get it. Because mercury's a neurotoxin. Mercury fillings in the mouth. You see, mercury is bioaccumulative. It leaches into the tissues. It can poke holes in the arterial wall. Who's going to patch up the holes, students? LDL. It's the repairer and the rebuilder, right on the edge, ready to just plug up the hole. But you know the problem is, most people don't realise the danger of mould. They should know the danger of cigarettes because it is on the packet. Most people don't realise the danger of mercury. They don't realise that the most recent fisheries reports show there's hardly a fish in Australia without mercury. That's scary, isn't it? Now, if you're feeling sad right now because you love fish, the bigger the fish, the higher the accumulation of mercury because it's bioaccumulative. So go for the small fish and make it a rare treat. I eat lentils myself. And because people don't realise the danger, the damage continues. What's happening inside the arterial wall? It's called atherosclerosis, arteriosclerosis, narrowing of the arterial walls. And the person's dehydrated, and the person's having too much coffee, which dehydrates even more. Can you see how quickly a blockage can happen? Mind you, that's not quite correct. The blood cells are probably this big. What causes heart disease? Is it cholesterol? No, cholesterol's just there doing its job. To blame cholesterol for heart disease is like blaming the fire trucks for the fire. Well, they must have caused the fire. They're always there. Or it's like blaming every accident on the ambulance. Well, it's the only common denominator with every accident. Have you noticed? Can you see that sort of reasoning? And that's why Dr. Malcolm Kendrick and Dr. Dwight Lundell, both cardiovascular surgeons, have written books saying the great cholesterol con, the great cholesterol lie, because cholesterol does not cause heart disease. And if you have a cholesterol test, it doesn't show you the build-up in the arterial wall, does it? It's just showing what's in the blood at any given time. Now let me tell you something else very alarming. I'm going to give you the American figures because they're the ones I'm familiar with, but I will show you a comparison with Australia. 2 years ago I was running a health retreat in America, in Alabama, and a nutritionist did our program. She's 69. She looked 50. She kept her body in good working order. She said, I work with a doctor. She said, when I was in university 40 years ago, 300 and under was perfectly normal for cholesterol levels. So what's that on Australian levels? That'd be about 8. 40 years ago, 8 was normal. If someone has 8 today, what are they told? Your cholesterol levels are dangerously high. You're walking, you're ready for a heart attack. Is that right? They changed it. I think it was about 15 years ago in America, they changed it to 200. So what's that in Australia? That'd be what, 6? They've changed it. Okay, question. They've changed the levels. So people are being put on cholesterol-lowering medication at lower and lower levels. Got that? So 40 years ago, 300 was normal, 8 was normal. This changed. Have we changed? No. So now we're on fat-free diets. Now the cholesterol levels are in your body, they've made lower, and they're getting lower with cholesterol-lowering medication. So surely we've got less heart attacks. Have we? No. It's still the #1 killer. And what's the definition of insanity? To do what you've always done and get different results. But something else is happening. We're seeing Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss in alarming amounts. Because what does the brain need? Cholesterol. So people are put on cholesterol-lowering medication. The side effects of cholesterol-lowering medication are memory loss, interested, Alzheimer's, dementia, muscle wasting, and they've just added another one, breast cancer, because our sex hormones are made from cholesterol. Can you see why the books are called the cholesterol lie, the cholesterol myth, the cholesterol con, the cholesterol hoax? And there's another one, I think it's the great cholesterol big con. They're putting, because they're running out of words. I had a chemist do our program 2 years ago now. She said, I'm 65, I've been a chemist for a long time. She said, I have my own private practice. She said, and I work in a hospital. She said, recently a circular went round that anyone with a cholesterol level above 3.5 had to go on cholesterol lowering medication. She said, I'm annoyed because it's purely a money-making scheme, because if someone goes on an antibiotic, they're on it for a week. If someone goes on cholesterol lowering medication, how long are they told they're on it for? Life. She said, I'm not against drugs, I'm a chemist. She said, but this is purely a money-making scheme. Now, if anyone here is on cholesterol lowering medication, if they stop tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, there will be some side effects. Here are the side effects. Your memory will return. Your muscles will get stronger. That's it. That's it. I'm annoyed, and you can probably tell I am, because this is a hoax. Now, I'd like to show you the basic structure of fats. And when you understand the basic structure of fats, you begin to understand how the body uses it, where the body uses it, and why the body uses it. There's an old proverb, it's Proverbs 14 verse 6, it says, knowledge is easy to him that understands. So that's what I want to give you tonight. I want to give you an understanding so you automatically have the knowledge on how to use your fats, what are the best fats, and what are they used for. And I'm going to begin with an essential fatty acid called omega-3. You've heard of omega-3? Omega-3 is called an essential fatty acid. Essential fatty acid means body cannot make it. You've got to put it in. Now, what are we told is the highest source of omega-3? Fish. Did you know that no animal can put omega-3 into their fatty acid chain? Only plants can. So why are fish high? Because they eat a one-celled algae that's got omega-3 into it. And we can do far superior to fish. We can eat linseed or flaxseed, same thing. It can be easily ground up and put on your breakfast every morning. Or you can eat chia seed, or you can eat them both. Flaxseed or linseed is the highest source of omega-3 in the vegetable kingdom, and chia is the second highest source. What I want to show you now is what that 3 means. Omega-3 is an 18-chain fatty acid, and I've drawn the 18 chains there. Now this little illustration here, there are 19 trillion in one drop of oil. That's the magnification we're looking at. Notice that there are chains and there's hydrogen atoms either side, and in the middle they are linked by carbon atoms. The 3 means that at the third carbon atom there's a double bond. So instead of 1 link, there are 2 links. And whenever you've got those 2 links, these hydrogen atoms above go, and the hydrogen atoms underneath develop an electromagnetic field between them. Because of that electromagnetic field, a repelling action happens and they repel each other. That causes a kink. In flaxseed, chia seed, there are 3 double bonds in the fatty acid chain. So there's another one, 1, 2, 3. There's another one there, 1, 2, 3. Another one there. These hydrogen atoms go, and these ones underneath develop an electromagnetic field between them. That means there's 2 more kinks. So we've got another kink there and another kink there. That produces a very thin oil, a very fluid oil. And traditionally, the English always painted their cricket bats with linseed oil because it disperses so easy. So when we eat this oil, it disperses easy. That's a very effective blood thinner. This oil is called a super unsaturated fatty acid. Super because there's 3 double bonds, very thin oil. Sorry, I missed out one word there. Super poly. Poly means more than one double bond. Unsaturated because there are some empty spots on the fatty acid chain. Now I'd like to make a list of what the effect of those double bonds has on the body. So these double bonds create an electromagnetic field between them. These are essential fatty acids, because of their 3 double bonds, they create an electromagnetic field. Now that electromagnetic field is important because we are electrical people. There's a spark of electricity in every cell. Our brain is an incredibly complex electrical system. I think God's got a sense of humour because the nut that looks like the brain is the nut that's the highest in omega-3. What's that one? That's your walnut, that's right. So if you're going to be doing an exam in the afternoon, make sure you have a handful of walnuts at lunchtime to get those omega-3s. These double bonds also are light sensitive. That means they attract the light. These double bonds are heat sensitive. That means they attract the heat. These double bonds act like a magnet to oxygen. Oxygen, the most vital element needed for life. So when we're eating these oils, we can ensure our electromagnetic field. We absorb more light, more vitamin D. We're able to manage our heat better. We absorb and attract more oxygen. No wonder it's called a super polyunsaturated fatty acid. But if you grind open that seed and put it in a plastic bag on the shelf in the supermarket, within 1 hour, the light, heat and oxygen are attracted into the empty spots and the oil's destroyed. Dr. Sandra Cabot, very famous Australian doctor, she has made LSA famous, is that right? And you can buy LSA ground up in the supermarket, don't touch it. There used to be a coffee grinder, it's grinding up those little seeds just before your breakfast. I'd like to at this point give you the omega-3 story. Let's have a look at the omega-3. This will help you understand because people say the fish oil in the capsules is more readily available. You've heard that? Well, let me explain. So the omega-3 found in flaxseed or linseed chia is called alpha-linolenic acid or ALA. And it has 3 double bonds. So that's 1, 2, 3, very thin oil. In the body, ALA is converted to EPA, eicosanoic acid. And EPA has 5 double bonds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a very thin oil. EPA in the body is converted to DHA, decohexaonic acid, and it has 6 double bonds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a very thin oil. And it's DHA that is used exclusively for cell membrane function and repair. In the fish eat the ALA. And in the fish, ALA is converted to EPA. In the fish, EPA is converted to DHA. Man extracts that, puts it into little capsules and said, this fish oil is far superior because the DHA is already available to you. Can you see that? But the fish that are the highest in DHA are the highest in mercury. Mercury is a fat-soluble toxin, and there's fish today that doesn't have it. So understanding all of that, to me, it's much easier for us to get it from the seeds. So the second oil that we're going to look at now is the sunflower oil. And the sunflower oil is high in omega-6. 6 indicating the position on the fatty acid chain of the first double bond. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's the first double bond. It's also an 18-chain fatty acid. and it has 2 double bonds in its structure. So 1, 2, 3, there's another one there. So you've got hydrogen atoms here and here, hydrogen along here, hydrogen atoms along here. So you've got 2 repelling actions. And up the top we've got 2 empty spots. So the 2 repelling actions creates a fairly thin oil, but not as thin as your omega-3. Also called a polyunsaturated fatty acid. Poly meaning more than 1 double bond. Unsaturated because there's some empty spots on the fatty acid chain. That's what those terms mean. Well, what about almond and olive oil? They are high in omega-9. 9 indicates the position on the fatty acid chain of the first double bond. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There it is there. And there's only 1 double bond in almond and olive. So you've got hydrogen atoms along here and along here and along here. So that's 1 repelling action. So that's 1 kink. And I think we can all appreciate olive oil is a thick oil, isn't it? That's because there's only 1 double bond. So it's called a monounsaturated fatty acid. Mono meaning 1 double bond. Unsaturated because there is still an empty spot on the fatty acid chain. Well, what about coconut? Well, these 3 here are what's called long chain fatty acids because they're 18 chains. Whereas coconut, it has short and medium chain fatty acids. Short chain would be 6, 8, 10 chains. Medium would be 12, 14, 16 chains. I've drawn a 10 there. And coconut has no double bonds. Every spot is full. And in the cold weather, what's that oil like? Solid. So it's called a saturated fat. It's called a saturated fat because there are no empty spots. Every spot is full. So what's the best oil? Well, which body function are you talking about? Because the body uses all of them. It uses the omega-3 exclusively for cell membrane function and repair because it gives a beautiful suppleness to the membrane around every cell, especially the brain cell. It also begins the anti-inflammatory cascade in the body. How many people with arthritis are told to go on fish oil capsules? All they really need to do is to take the ground flax, the chia, and have some walnuts with their lunch maybe, have the seeds with their breakfast. A lot of people have smoothies today. The ground linseed and the chia are great additives to smoothies. They give it a nice thickness too. But the body loves burning coconut as fuel. Let me show you. Let me draw a gastrointestinal tract. Here's the mouth. Here's the esophagus. Here's the stomach. Here's the liver. There's the gallbladder just under the liver going into the bile duct that comes down and connects with the head of the pancreas. There's pancreas. Here is the duodenum, first part of the small intestine. It's lined with villi, basically like this. Let me magnify the villi. Up the middle of the villi is the lacteal, part of the lymphatic system, and all through the villi is the blood. So let's have a look at what happens with the 3 long-chain fatty acids, the 3 18-chain fatty acids. They're not broken down in the mouth, and they're not broken down in the stomach, but when they get to the duodenum, bile from the gallbladder emulsifies the fats into tiny particles. And then pancreatic lipase further breaks it down, and then it is absorbed straight into the lacteal. The lacteal, now it's in the lymphatic system, and it's taken to the thymus, then the liver. And the liver says, the surgeons have arrived, store them. Because remember, they're used for cell membrane function and repair. Well, what about the coconut? The coconut is unique. You see, under the glands in the well, under the tongue, there are glands called sublingual glands, and they release lingual lipase. And lingual lipase is the enzyme that breaks down short and medium chain fatty acids. And so there's short and medium chain fatty acids in the coconut. The breakdown begins in the mouth. Gets into the stomach, breakdown's already happening. Gets into the duodenum, does not need bile, does not need pancreatic lipase, and that gets taken straight through to the blood. Taken to the liver and burnt as fuel. What an amazing oil. And by the way, if someone wanted to lose weight, would they eat an oil that the body stored or an oil that the body burnt? Burnt. So if someone wanted to lose weight, what would be the best oil to eat? It's hard to say, isn't it? We've been so brainwashed. Isn't that true? And yet, I'm just giving you the science. The basic science behind it. It defies reason. Let's go to the South Pacific Islands 100 years ago. Maybe a little bit more when Captain Cook landed. He was confronted with the most magnificent specimens of humanity he had ever seen. The men were tall, strong, agile. Weston Price, he studied their teeth, perfect teeth. The women were beautiful. Captain Cook had a bit of trouble with his men. The women were so beautiful. Beautiful, luxurious hair. But white man said to them, stop eating the coconut, it's a saturated fat, it'll give you heart disease. And they said, what's that? Another proof that saturated fat doesn't cause heart disease. So they listened because white man brought a lot of reforms, freed them from a lot of very strange spiritual practices. So they were very appreciative to the white man. And so they listened. And white man introduced 5 lethal whites. White rice, white sugar, white flour, white refined salt, and white cow's milk. And those 5 lethal whites are doing their job. You go to the islands today, there's not many grey-haired people. Did you know that average life expectancy is 58? And what's the size of the island people today? Huge! Not because of the coconut, because they've stopped the coconut. Every year for the last 15 years I've gone to the South Pacific Islands and lectured. And I lecture loud and clear and strong. Start to eat that coconut again. Pull those sugarcane plants out and plant coconuts. Soon the island people will not be able to meet the demand because a wave of awakening is happening. People are starting to wake up to the fact that the coconut is not the enemy. I was giving meetings in Denver last year at a health retreat there. And it came across June last year. The FDA made a circular, they put it out on social media. Warning, coconut is dangerous. It's not the health food that people are trying to tell you it is. Well, what are the FDA going to say? What does America grow a lot of? Coconuts? No. Grape. So what are they going to push? Peanut oil, safflower oil. Can you see that? Soybean oil. Do you know 100 years ago, the only fats that people ate were animal fats? And the only vegetable fats they ate, and depending where you lived, was the olive oil and the coconut oil. All through Europe, women had little wooden presses in their kitchen and they could extract the oil because you can get the oil out of the flesh of the plant, so it's not difficult. All through the islands, women would extract the oil out of the coconut. It's extracted from the flesh of the plant. It's not hard. And so traditionally, people got all their polyunsaturated fats from food. And the 2 oils that can be extracted quite easily, because they're extracted from the flesh of the plant, can you see they're the most stable oils? The coconut oil is the most stable. It's light resistant, heat resistant. The olive oil traditionally was always extracted and put in dark bottles or big ceramic jars in the basement, because they found that if it was, it kept the fresh flavour. If they put it in the light, it got a bitter flavour. Now we know why. It's because the light, heat and oxygen can go into that empty spot. That's why when you buy olive oil today, how do you buy it? Tins or good dark green bottles. It should not be exposed to the light. So 100 years ago, people got all their polyunsaturated fats from foods, and depending where you lived, it was either the coconut or the olive oil. About 80 years ago, man developed equipment. High heat. What's the high heat going to do to these oils? Destroy them. High heat chemical equipment, so they now could extract oil from hard seeds. But if you use heat to extract polyunsaturated fats, what are you doing to them? You're destroying all the double bonds. The most dangerous fat for the human body, as I've showed you, is this dumped fat from a high carbohydrate diet or polyunsaturated fats that have been extracted with heat. And yet, what does the FDA tell us? Don't eat the saturated fat, eat the polyunsaturated fats. But they're the most dangerous because they're so susceptible to spoilage. I'm just giving you the facts. Is that right? And when you look at those oils, they're in clear bottles, plastic bottles. Is that right? Well, it doesn't really matter. They've been so destroyed already. And those oils now can cause cancer. Those oils now can damage the arterial wall and actually contribute to atherosclerosis. Let's have a look at planet Earth. On planet Earth, we've got cold spots and hot spots. Right across the middle, we've got the equator. Hottest place on the planet. And what food's grown there? Coconut. The saturated fats are grown there, and they're perfectly designed for that area. Because the coconut is light resistant, heat resistant, oxygen resistant. And coconut is about 40% antifungal. So perfectly designed to protect people from fungal problems in that hot, moist climate. Let's go up the planet. Let's go to the Mediterranean. What oils are grown there? Your olive and your almond, omega-9. You know, the further up the planet we go, we find foods that are fire in 6. Right up the top, the foods are the highest in 3. You know Rasmus, he wrote a book called Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. And he explores this in great detail. But he quoted a study where they took a plant grown in the Mediterranean, and it was very high in omega-9. Same species of plant grown further up the planet, higher in 6. Same species of plant grown right up the top, high in omega-3. So we should be eating food that's grown in our area because it's perfectly designed for our body's needs in that area at that time of the year. Now we live on a great part of the planet. We are about there. We can actually partake of a little bit of all of it. Now there are 2 oils that are being used medicinally today and have been used medicinally for centuries, and that is the olive and the coconut oil. Olive oil, women used to massage their baby's skin with the olive oil. If it was very cold, instead of bathing the baby, they would give the baby an olive oil bath. You just cotton ball with olive oil and wipe the baby down. You look at the cotton ball and you see that it takes waste out off the skin. Also, an old remedy is a spoonful of olive oil for an upset stomach. Olive oil can be taken for constipation. But a very old remedy is drinking half a cup of olive oil and half a cup of lemon juice, that's pretty strong, to eliminate gallstones. Have you heard of that remedy? In my book I've got a gentler remedy than drinking all of that, still using the olive oil to expel the gallstones. What about coconut? Coconut, strong antifungal, so excellent for that. Women would always massage their babies with coconut oil. Skin conditions respond because many skin conditions have a fungal component. But coconut oil is being used today to heal brain problems, to heal autism, to heal dementia. And there's a couple of books that you can buy. In fact, I know so far this author has written 6 books on the coconut oil. His name's Dr. Bruce Fife. He's an American. And we have 2 books. Well, we've got all of his books, but 2 books I particularly like to talk about. One is called Stop Autism Now, and one is called Stop Alzheimer's Now. Now, Stop Autism Now is about all childhood neurodegeneration. So that's Alzheimer's, no, sorry, not the Alzheimer's then. That's autism, Asperger's, attention deficit syndrome, epilepsy, hyperactivity. Now, the first 4 chapters of the book, he shows that the cause of all these problems is vaccination. But he shows all the research so you can get all your facts there. And he actually lists what's in the vaccines. And they banned mercury in 1998, but there's still formaldehyde and aluminium, 2 very toxic neurotoxins that they're actually injecting into children. Just incredible. But he shows what can heal it. He says, number 1, eliminate the wheat, dairy and refined sugar. You see, the wheat, dairy and refined sugar today is not what it was 100 years ago. They've hybridized the wheat, they've pasteurized and homogenized the milk so much, and the cows are given so many poisons it's almost not fit for consumption, and the sugar's been greatly refined. Nothing wrong with the sugar cane. Now those 3 foods are particularly irritating to the gut, particularly irritating to the body. And when children are sensitive, you stop those 3 and you can get a 50% improvement. One lady said to me, but that's all my autistic child eats, is wheat, dairy, refined sugar. You know, you'll be surprised what children will eat when they're hungry. And I haven't read of any child dying of starvation in Australia, have you? So make the food beautiful, make it lovely, but just don't have those foods in the house. So that's number 1. And he shows that you start supplementing with coconut oil. Start with a teaspoon 3 times a day. Both of those books have a chapter called The Ketone Miracle. And it's the story of the ketogenic diet. Have you heard of the ketogenic diet? It's actually becoming a little bit more popular today. In the 1920s, a group of doctors fasted their epileptic patients. And when they fasted their epileptic patients, in 90% of the cases, the seizures stopped. You see, when you fast, your body starts to break down your fat stores. Yeah? That's basically when you don't eat, because your fat in your body is stored pure. Is that right? Now, when that fat is broken down to give the glucose that we need to run on, the liver converts the fat to ketones. And ketones, they have shown, are neurohealers. Ketones are neuroprotective. So these epileptic patients who were fasting, their seizures were stopping, but you've got to eat. So they came up with the ketogenic diet to mimic fasting. It's a high-fat diet. So eating huge amounts of fat, no carbohydrates at all, a little bit of protein and fibres. And the seizures stayed away because the liver was converting that fat to ketones, which are neurohealers, neuroprotectors. But it's a very hard diet to stay on. Dr. Atkins found the same thing back in the 80s when he put his patients on no carbohydrates, high fibre, generous proteins and fat. His epileptic patients' seizures were stopping. So what Dr. Bruce Fife suggests is the modified Atkins, or the coconut ketogenic diet, which is stop the carbohydrates or greatly reduce them at first, have lots of fibre, that's lots of vegetables. He suggests meat and eggs. I suggest legumes, nuts and seeds, generous proteins and healthy fats. He suggests start supplementing with a teaspoon of coconut oil 3 times a day and build up to a tablespoon of coconut oil 3 times a day. It's the ketogenic diet. By the way, the ketogenic diet has been advocated at the Johns Hopkins Hospital for healing mental things since what? Since the 1920s. Do you know these people don't have heart attacks? Do you see the link? And if fat and saturated fat and cholesterol cause heart attack, wouldn't they be the first? You see, it's a myth, it's a lie. That's even more proof to show it doesn't. What about the book Stop Alzheimer's Now? Now it's about all adult neurodegeneration. So there's your Alzheimer's, your dementia, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's chorea, multiple sclerosis. They're all cases of neurodegeneration, but in different parts of the brain. And he says the same thing. Drastically reduce the carbs, have lots of fibre, have a generous protein, and supplement with the coconut oil. In both books, there are cases of children who recovered from autism. Now, most people think there's no recovery, is that right? But there is. And there are also cases in Stop Alzheimer's Now where people recovered from Alzheimer's, and yet we're not told that there's recovery at all from that, are we? Because the pharmaceutical companies own the media. I guess we know that by now, is that right? The things that come through in the media, they're all designed for what they want us to know. I am just so thankful for these independent writers, these doctors who've taken up the course and written their story, all with decades of clinical practice up their sleeve. So the coconut and the olive oil are being used today as healers, particularly the coconut oil, because of its ability to heal brain cells. Isn't that good news? Now, in the 1980s, a fat was introduced to us Australians in the claim that it was going to reduce heart disease. It's called margarine. Yeah? Has it? Has it? No. So cholesterol-lowering medication, lowering the cholesterol levels we're supposed to have, fat-free diet, margarine introduced, surely that's reducing heart disease. No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, Aussies wake up, is that right? We've been spun a lie. I hope I haven't shocked you too much. So how do they make margarine? Well, let's say margarine's going to be made out of flaxseed oil. We've got a problem. It's liquid, and they want to spread it. So what they do is they saturate it with hydrogen ions. To saturate it, they have to use nickel or aluminium. Did you know that every tub of margarine has nickel or aluminium in it? So it's the margarine that's also contributing to the mental illness, the Alzheimer's. So they saturate it with hydrogen ions, and that causes the double bond to go, and it causes one hydrogen atom to flip over to the other side. And this structure that I've just drawn for you now is not known in nature. It's very similar to the structure of plastic. So if you're going to eat margarine, you should eat the plastic container it comes in. There's not much difference. Now we have a solid fat. Isn't that what they want? The shocking news is that every tub of margarine is a saturated fat. Because if it was polyunsaturated, it'd be liquid. Can you see that? So why do they say polyunsaturated margarine? If you ask them, this is what they say. Well, it was polyunsaturated before we saturated it. That's like when it says sugar-free, no added sugar, fruit juice. Well, on a good year, there is no added sugar. But on a bad year, when the rains come at the wrong time and it's dry at the wrong time and the fruit's not as sweet, so by law they can add sugar to bring it up to the desired sweetness of a good year and say no added sugar. And if you question them, they say, well, no, there's no added sugar after it got to the required sweetness. Can you see it's trick in wording? Some say, well, what about Nuffalex margarine? My answer is, what about it? Is it solid?
It's supposed to be better for Nuffalex.
Oh, yeah, why?
Because it's dairy-free.
Do you know your body knows butter, but it doesn't know margarine. In fact, when margarine goes in, the body says, alien from outer spaces, dust entered, do not compute, delete as quickly as possible. What's the quickest way to delete it? Skin. Skin cancer rates have risen. And stop blaming the sun, especially when someone comes to me with a basal cell carcinoma on the inside of their thigh. How much sun gets in there? Do you know there's been a death and no one attended the funeral because no one knew he died? It was the death of common sense. Isn't that true? Common sense isn't very common today. That's why I believe we all should be our own doctor. If someone comes to me on cholesterol-lowering medication, blood-thinning medication, I say to them, I have no authority over your medication. Only you and your doctor have the authority. Did you hear that? You or your doctor. But I say to them, but I can tell you what I would do. And as I said, the only side effect of stopping cholesterol-lowering medication is that your memory will return, your Alzheimer's will turn around, and your muscles will stop wasting away. Isn't that good news? So that's how they make margarine. It's a scary process, isn't it? So what are we going to put on our bread? Well, when my children were little, I knew, oh yeah, why are we going to eat bread? And what bread are we going to eat? Sourdough spelt bread. Well, I put olive oil on my bread. I used to put it on my children's bread because I knew that was the best. But I didn't, because I didn't grow up with that and I was not used to that. But I used to watch my children eat it with such relish. When they'd eaten all their veggies and all their salad, then they could have a slice of our homemade bread toasted on the fuel stove with olive oil and honey. And they used to eat this as if they were eating something absolutely wonderful. And I used to watch them and I thought one day I'm going to try that. I love it now. Your tastes do change. And when I smell olive oil now, I get hungry. And the best olive oil, please, buy Australian olive oil. I want my dollar to go into the Australian pocket. Is that right? And the rules around Australian olive oil are pretty strict. So when it says extra virgin, first cold pressed, you can believe it. Now, the cheaper ones that are coming from Italy and Greece, I can't guarantee. We would hope if it says extra virgin, it is extra virgin. But there are some very nice Australian olive oils coming out now. And the good news, in many supermarkets, they're often on special, and when they're on special, we buy up quite a few. So if you're feeling sad right now because there's a new tub of margarine in your fridge at home, just close your eyes when you throw it into the bin. So you can put olive oil on your bread. You can put, my husband puts avocado on his bread. And the other thing, we've got a book in our library at home called Life Without Bread. You know, I think it's one of the fast foods that people are just eating too much of. And without exception, everyone that comes to me with irritable bowel, Crohn's disease, colitis, when they stop the bread, dairy and refined sugar and start to take herbs like citriol, they heal. Did you hear that? Without exception. And without exception, every mother that comes to me with a baby with eczema, and I tell them to stop the wheat, dairy, refined sugar, they heal. Did you hear that? Without exception. Now it can take 2 months once you've stopped it to see the full results. And a lady told me this, that her daughter took her baby, so her little grandson who had bad eczema, to a paediatrician in Coffs Harbour named Dr. Bud. And that paediatrician said to that mother, you've got to stop the wheat, dairy, refined sugar. Isn't it nice to know that there are some doctors and specialists who are aware of the dangers? What are most babies put on? Cortisone. So any skin disease, did you hear that? Without exception. I still, you know, maybe an exception will come, but those 3 foods, and yet how many Aussies, that almost is the main part of their diet, is those 3 foods. So as you can see by my illustration, fats are not the problem. There are 2 dangerous fats. I started with the first dangerous one, which is this high carbohydrate diet, dumping too much fat. And the other dangerous fats are the altered polyunsaturated fats. So my suggestion is we get all our polyunsaturated fats from our nuts and our seeds. And I think we should be having a handful of nuts and a small handful of seeds every meal. How many Aussies do that? How many Aussies don't eat nuts and then for a month then they get a packet of cashews and eat the whole lot in the afternoon? Is that right? We should be having a handful of nuts every meal. Let me demonstrate the handful. Fingertips touch the palm of the hand. I can squeeze about 8 almonds in there, maybe 5 Brazil nuts in there. One lady said, well, our 3-year-old has 3 and our 4-year-old has 4. I said, what does your 80-year-old have? And if you do have a cup of nuts, you can get an allergy because you overdo it. And if we only ate the food that we grew, the nuts let go of the trees let go of their nuts once a year, and we store it. Are we going to eat them all in 2 weeks, so we've got no nuts for the rest? And you know what? If we were going to eat them all in 2 weeks, we'd be spending all day opening them. Is that right? If you have nuts in their shell on the table, after about 8 nuts, people, it's time to get back to work. So you see, God put the nut in a hard shell, and the message is a little bit less. Can you see that? A little bit less. But when the blackberries were on, there's no limit to the blackberries. So we should be eating fruits and abundance. We should be eating some form of protein every day in the form of legumes. One lady said, well, legumes aren't a good fuel for me. Well, they're a very clean burning fuel compared to animal protein. And the only time they're not clean burning fuel if they're not soaked and rinsed enough. You see, they should be soaked, rinsed in the morning, and then brought to the boil, and you know all the white froth on top of that water, you know what that is? Wind. Got that? So put the tap on and get that water away. And when they're 3/4 cooked, I rinse them again. And then in my other pot, I've got a lovely rich sauce. And then I'll rinse them again, put them in the sauce and let them have maybe half an hour, maybe an hour, so the beans then take on the flavour. Most people don't know how to do their beans. But they're such a cheap form of protein, such an excellent form of protein. Keeps the blood sugars nice and low, helps the blood to get nice and thin, as do all your vegetables. The best blood thinner is water. And we should be having at least 8 glasses a day. Start when you wake up in the morning. You know, this is how you drink your water. Wake up in the morning, got a big glass by your bed, have half a glass. Get up and get dressed, have another half glass. Go to the bathroom, have another half glass. Pray and read your Bible, maybe you'll get 2 more half glasses. Run up and down mountains, then another. Can you see how you have it? Little by little by little, your body can access that. It can access it much better. So a lot of people have had a heart attack or a stroke, or doctor says they're at that age, they're put on blood thinners, and one of them's called warfarin, and you know what warfarin is? Rat poison. Causes the rats to bleed to death. So they just give the human being not as much to cause them to bleed to death, but I tell you, I'm not interested in taking rat poison. Especially when you realise drinking adequate water over the day keeps that blood nice and thin. That's just common sense, isn't it? But there's another herb that is particularly effective in thinning the blood, opening all the capillaries and arteries, and strengthen the arterial walls. That sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It'll even rebuild heart muscle. It's called cayenne pepper. In fact, there's a book called Curing with Cayenne. It's an e-book by Sam Bizer. He's written a whole book on how powerful cayenne pepper is. So I trust I've given you some tools tonight so that if you are on some of these medications, you've got some alternatives. And this has been filmed so you can get the DVD where I've listed all the names of those books and those doctors that show that the cholesterol causing heart disease is a myth. And my aim is to inspire you. My aim is to inspire you to investigate. My aim is to inspire you to have another look at this amazing machinery that we live in. The body has been designed to heal itself. The more you investigate, the more you find out about the runnings of this human body, the more I'm sure each one of us will do what the psalmist says many years ago, who didn't know the detail I've shown you, where he said in Psalm 139 verse 14, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvellous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Tomorrow night, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be talking on a subject that's absolutely vital. It's called Activity is Life. The human body was designed to move. Stagnant pools breed disease, and so do stagnant bodies. But many people have talked on exercise, but tomorrow I'm going to show you a form of exercise that will only take you 12 minutes every 24 hours. Interested? And it's actually more powerful than a 1 hour 5k jog. That's incredibly attractive, isn't it? So we'll be looking at that tomorrow night. On Friday night, we'll be looking at how to empower your immune system. Very good lecture as we go into those winter months. So you'll be taking something more powerful into these winter months than a flu vaccine. And then on Saturday morning, I'm going to take you on a journey through your gastrointestinal tract, starting at your mouth, ending up at the other end. And then the second part of Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock, I'm going to be talking about how you can rewire your brain. And the science shows that we can rewire our brain right up until the day we die. That's good news. I'm going to show you how your brain can get younger as you get older. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to be looking at child nutrition. And isn't that where it all starts? So thank you for your attention tonight. Do we have any questions? I don't. If there are questions, there is a question box, but we do have time to answer some from the floor, and for the sake of the camera and everyone else, I'll repeat them. Was there a question?
The rice bran oil. My friend was in the oils. She said the rice bran oil is good oil. Is that
Okay, rice bran oil. Now I try to use my common sense. I can get my mind around how they make coconut oil. In fact, I've seen them do it in the islands. I can get my mind around how they make olive oil. I can't get my mind around how they make rice bran oil. When I cook rice, there's no oil on top. So there's not a lot of oil in rice. And I think they must have a lot of rice bran then. Why do they have a lot of rice bran? Because so many people want to eat white rice. And did you know that in India they only ever ate brown rice until the British came and refined everything? So there must be a lot of rice bran around. So some cluey marketer decided to crush it and get an oil out of it and tell the people that this is good stuff. Can you see that? So I don't even consider it because, I just don't consider it.
So with the cold press oil, that's good for baking. What would you use for frying? Because I was using olive oil for frying.
Now, if you heat olive oil, what's going to happen to that double bond? It's going to be destroyed. So if you do want to bake, now you can put olive oil in breads and in cakes, and that will not destroy it because of what it's with. But if you just put it in a pan and heat it, you'll lose your double bond. But there is an oil that you can fry and bake with. What is it, students? It's the coconut because it's got no double bonds. So if you do want to fry, that is the one that you would do it with, yes?
Two questions. Grapeseed oil, where does that fit in?
Grapeseed oil. How hard is the grapeseed?
Hard.
Very hard. So they have to use heat and chemicals to extract that oil. It's the only way to extract it. Can you see that? So I don't use grapeseed oil. And what about canola oil? You know, canola oil always had a fatty acid in it called uracic acid, and that's toxic to humans. So they genetically modified it to lower the uracic acid levels. So number one problem, it's been genetically modified. Now, canola oil does have omega-3 and omega-6, and they extract it with heat. And if you go to the supermarket and look at spreadable butters, what's the oil it all has in it? It's canola oil. So that is a dangerous oil. You had another question?
Just leptins, like you described how to prepare beans and all that sort of stuff. But with the seeds, nuts, do you soak your almonds?
Leptins, you may have heard of them. They're saying they're dangerous. They're in grains and nuts and seeds. In grains, if they're long, slow cooked, that's where your slow cookers are good. And if you buy bread, it should be sourdough because the culturing process breaks that down. With your legumes, they must be well soaked and well rinsed. What about your nuts and your seeds? They should be chewed till they're a cream. If you chew them to a cream, your enzymes are breaking them down. So not a problem.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yes?
When you were talking about what caused dementia and Alzheimer's, does that include bipolar as well?
Bipolar. Do you know that 100 years ago they didn't know what the word bipolar meant?
Now it's quite...
Now, do you know what is also happening? A lot of bipolar schizophrenia is a result of recreational drug use. And the proverb says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. A lot of the time, people are told they have an illness and then they live up to that illness. And sometimes mental illness can be caused because of a fat-free diet. Sometimes it can be caused because of a hormonal imbalance. Sometimes it can be caused because of dehydration. So there are multiple causes for these things. I will not have time to explore that in detail on Saturday morning, but on YouTube and on my set of DVDs, I have lectures where I spend time pursuing those questions on the mind. Yes? Butter? Okay, butter, your body knows butter, but butter, being the fat, is a concentration of a lot of the drugs that are given to the animals. Did you know that 80% of antibiotics that are made are given to animals? And a lot of Aussies are becoming immune to antibiotics because they're getting it through the animal foods that they're eating. Your body does no butter. If your family is going to eat margarine or butter, and if you don't buy it, they will buy organic butter. But I think you're far superior to go to your avocados and your olive oils. Yes?
The coconut sugar, is that best to use in place of your white sugar if you're going to...
Yeah, coconut sugar is just the crystallized nectar of the palm flower. So it's not a refined food like your sugar is. And you can get coconut sugar, palm sugars in the Asian section of the supermarket, and also in Asian shops it's quite cheap. Yeah?
Just regarding, you said you get your proteins from nuts.
Nuts, legumes and seeds.
Nuts, legumes and seeds. What is your logic for doing that? Because I am eating some organic meats.
What is my logic for doing that? Well, as a Christian, I feel you cannot go superior than the Garden of Eden diet. And the Garden of Eden diet is found in Genesis 1:29, where God said, "Behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth." So herb-bearing seed is a grain, it's a legume, and it is a seed. And then God said, "And every tree, in the which of the tree is a fruit-bearing seed?" A fruit-bearing seed is your nut. And then the last thing God said was, "The seed, to you it shall be for meat."
And so how about iron? Like if people have low iron status, how can they get their iron?
How can they get their iron up? All your iron-rich foods are your blood-coloured foods. So your dark greens, your beetroots, your blackberries, your raspberries. Most people that are anemic because they've got low hydrochloric acid. And on Saturday morning, when I take you on the journey through the gut, I'll be showing you how boosting your hydrochloric acid will release your iron from your foods. So thank you for your attention. I think our time is just about up. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. My son William is up the back, manning the table on the books and the DVDs. So I'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you.
So thank you once again for coming out to listen to Barbara O'Neill. So we will be back here tomorrow at 7 p.m. And just remember, you're going to hear a lot of information that you haven't heard before. So please do invite your friends, family, so then they can also absorb all that new knowledge. And so tomorrow it'll be here, and then on Friday and Saturday it will be back at Burpengary. So if you haven't seen the flyers yet, we do have some at the back. There's been a change in the flyer, so the session that was normally at 3 p.m., the child nutrition, will now be at 2 p.m. So that way we can fit everything in nicely. Okay, so as well, Barbara mentioned the question and answers. So if you do have a specific question, you don't want to raise your hand, or you're a little bit shy, we do have paper up the back, so at any time, preferably before tomorrow, if you can jot down your question, put it down in the box that we have over there, and then that way we can pass it to Barbara, and then she'll choose the most important ones and the ones where the most people have passed. Okay, so thank you very much for all your attention, and just remember there are some books and DVDs that Barbara has brought along. Thank you.